Ladies and gentlemen, there is a hidden force in this world, more potent than talent, more reliable than luck, and more enduring than ambition. That force is consistency. It is not the man who works furiously for a day and rests for a year who shapes the world. It is the man who, though he may begin with nothing but faith and a definite purpose, wakes each morning with resolve and works his plan every day without fail. That man, though he may be overlooked at first, will soon be impossible to ignore. Consistency is the oil that keeps the engine of success running. Without it, even the best ideas rust away, but with it, yes, with it, you become unstoppable. Success is not a matter of chance, it is a matter of cause and effect. The laws of the universe do not reward those who dabble, they reward those who persist. The man who keeps going, even when the crowd has stopped clapping, even when the results are invisible, that man is laying bricks of greatness while others sleep. Let me be clear, persistence without purpose is wasted motion, but consistency with purpose is power, unshakable, eternal power. You must stay sharp. Sharpen your mind daily as a warrior sharpens a sword. Read, reflect, act, adjust, repeat. Mediocrity is the natural outcome of a life lived without conscious repetition of excellence. Too many men quit just inches from gold. They labor, they strive, and just when the breakthrough is near, they stop. Don't you stop. Don't you dare stop. When you are tired, rest, but do not quit. The path to mastery is paved not with massive leaps, but with steady footsteps, and each day you stay the course, you are building a habit that builds character, and a character that forges destiny. Winners are not born. They are built by repetition, tempered by trial, sharpened by discipline, and crowned by consistency. Let others chase the shortcut. You take the staircase. Let others dream casually. You work purposefully. Let others fall when storms come. You anchor yourself to your vision and rise. Keep going. Stay sharp. WIN forever. Not because luck favors you, but because you favor yourself with discipline. Write this in your heart. The man who never stops wins. Thank you. Consistency breeds unstoppable momentum. In the world of achievement, there exists a quiet and often overlooked force that separates the dreamers from the doers, the wishers from the winners. That force is consistency. It does not make a grand entrance. It does not boast. It does not demand applause. But day after day, it carves its name into the stone of progress. And over time, its results speak louder than any single act of brilliance ever could. The average man is moved by bursts of emotion. He starts strong, full of enthusiasm, his chest swelling with new ideas and grand visions. But when the initial spark fades and the labor becomes routine, he fades with it. The world is full of such men who begin, men who promise, men who hope. But consistency belongs to the rare individual who understands that success is not an event. It is a process, and that process is only fueled by continual effort, day in and day out. Momentum is not born from inspiration, it is born from repetition. One small act repeated with discipline over time becomes a mighty force that no obstacle can withstand. When a man commits to doing one thing daily, whether it is reading a page, writing a sentence, learning a skill, or practicing his craft, he invites momentum to serve him. And once momentum is his ally, even the largest challenges lose their power to paralyze him. There is no power in the occasional. There is no strength in the erratic. But when a man applies himself with quiet focus, when he shows up day after day regardless of mood, weather, or circumstance, he creates a rhythm that the world must eventually respect. He becomes the man who moves forward when others fall away. He becomes the man whose results cannot be denied. Consistency trains the mind to expect progress. Each day of honest work builds upon the last. Each repetition engraves the pattern deeper into the consciousness. Over time, what was once difficult becomes effortless, and what was once impossible becomes routine. That is the nature of momentum. It begins as a whisper and becomes a roar. Do not be deceived by the early silence. In the beginning, consistency is a lonely road. There are few crowds, There is little praise. It feels like nothing is changing, but underneath the surface, powerful roots are forming. The disciplined man may not see the fruit today, but he is cultivating a harvest that will overwhelm him in due time. The undisciplined man, by contrast, is always starting over. He stops and starts. He begins and quits. His journey is a series of false starts, and he wonders why he never reaches his destination. What he fails to understand is that greatness is not given to the man who works hard once, but to the man who works steadily always. Momentum is the natural reward of consistency. Like a flywheel, the early turns require great effort, but once the motion has begun, each push becomes easier, each movement builds upon the last. Eventually, the wheel spins with such force that stopping it becomes the greater challenge. This is how legacies are built, not in flashes of brilliance, but in unrelenting motion powered by commitment. Every great achievement in history was the product of this principle. The inventor who fails 1,000 times but continues his work every day. The writer who crafts a page each morning, no matter how uninspired. The athlete who trains in solitude, long before the crowd ever cheers his name. These individuals did not rely on mood or motivation. They relied on habit. They made consistency their standard, not their exception. Consistency does not ask for talent. It asks for resolve. It does not favor the fortunate. It favors the faithful. Even the smallest step forward, repeated without fail, carries a man farther than the most dramatic leaps taken only once. It is better to walk daily than to run only when inspired. There is no mystery to success. There is no secret formula. There is only the decision to act, and the discipline to repeat that action until the results are undeniable. Consistency is not a gift. It is a choice, and that choice, once made and honored, becomes the engine of achievement. Momentum favors the consistent, for it trusts the man who shows up, not just once, but always. Discipline is the foundation of lasting success. Purpose-driven repetition builds mastery. In the pursuit of excellence, repetition is often misunderstood. Many assume that doing something over and over guarantees improvement, but that is not always true. Repetition without direction leads to stagnation. It may even reinforce bad habits and deepen failure. But when repetition is aligned with purpose, clear, intentional, and focused, it becomes the most powerful tool in the development of mastery. Mastery is not a gift reserved for the fortunate. It is the product of deep focus and deliberate effort repeated over time. It is not found in shortcuts or occasional brilliance. It is built in the trenches of disciplined, purpose-driven repetition. The craftsman who becomes great does not merely repeat his work mindlessly. He studies his strokes, refines his movements, and pushes for better results with each cycle. He does not settle for familiar motions. He seeks improved execution. His purpose guides his practice, and his practice shapes his excellence. Without purpose, repetition is motion without progress. It is the man who swings a hammer without learning where to strike. It is the student who rewrites notes but never absorbs the lesson. It is the athlete who trains hard but does not correct form. They may feel busy, even exhausted, but they do not grow. They become trapped in a loop of activity that does not lead to elevation. Purpose is what breaks the loop. It gives repetition direction, meaning, and force. Every master was once a beginner. What separates the master from the average is not talent alone. It is how they repeated their efforts. With each attempt, they carried an intention. With each failure, they sought the lesson. They did not repeat blindly. They studied, they measured, they corrected. They approached each repetition as an opportunity to sharpen, not merely to perform. This conscious repetition, driven by purpose, is what transforms effort into excellence. Purpose provides feedback. It allows the individual to assess what works, what fails, and what must change. Without purpose, feedback is ignored or misread. With purpose, each attempt becomes data. The mind becomes engaged. The effort becomes intelligent. The individual does not simply go through the motions. He learns from the motion, and through this process, growth becomes inevitable. Mastery requires a marriage between patience and direction. The patient man endures repetition. The purposeful man makes it count. Together, they create a process that cannot be rushed but cannot be denied. Whether it is in art, business, science, or personal development, the man who practices with purpose slowly closes the gap between potential and perfection. He may not see immediate results, but his process is sound. Each repetition refines his understanding, deepens his skill, and strengthens his control. There is no substitute for time, but time alone is not the answer. What matters is how the time is used. 10 years of careless repetition will never rival 1 year of focused, purposeful effort. The former creates routine, the latter creates transformation. Purpose driven repetition accelerates improvement by keeping the mind alert and the will engaged. It prevents stagnation. It demands awareness. It rewards clarity. The world often admires the result of mastery without recognizing the method. They applaud the pianist's performance, the speaker's presence, the athlete's perfection, yet they overlook the hours of slow, sometimes frustrating repetition that gave birth to those moments. Behind every seamless act of mastery lies 1,000 deliberate repetitions, each guided by purpose and reviewed with care. The master does not guess, he builds. He builds through intentional effort, patiently compounded over time. Even the smallest improvements compound when driven by purpose. A 1% refinement made daily becomes transformative in the long run. But that 1% cannot happen without attention. It cannot happen without asking, with each repetition, how can this be better? That question is the spark of mastery. It turns mechanical practice into creative progress. It turns ordinary effort into exceptional results. There is discipline in repetition, but there is power in purposeful repetition. The disciplined man shows up. The purposeful man shows up with a plan. He knows what he's working toward. He knows why it matters, and that clarity fuels a deeper level of engagement. It removes the temptation to quit when progress feels slow. It gives meaning to the grind and value to the smallest gain. Purpose gives repetition its edge. It transforms mundane tasks into stepping stones. It takes what others see as boring and makes it sacred. Through this lens, mastery is no longer mysterious. It is the natural result of thousands of purposeful, focused, disciplined repetitions aimed at improvement, guided by vision, and executed with intent. Persistence outlasts talent and luck. In every field of endeavor, whether in business, art, invention, or leadership, the world has watched the rise and fall of those who began with promise but lacked the strength to continue. Talent dazzles in the beginning. Luck can create sudden elevation, but neither has the staying power of persistence. When the stage lights fade and the applause ends, it is persistence that keeps a man moving forward. It is the relentless drive to continue when things are hard, uncertain, or thankless. That is the force that creates true and lasting achievement. Talent is a fine thing, but it is not rare. The world is filled with people who are naturally gifted. Their skills are evident early. Their potential is obvious. Yet many of these individuals never reach greatness because they fall in love with ease and recoil at effort. They are admired for a moment, but forgotten in the long run. Talent without persistence becomes a burden, a wasted promise that never matures. Luck, too, is a fickle companion. It may arrive in a flash and change the direction of a man's life. It can open doors, create opportunities, and give a temporary head start. But luck does not stay. It does not remain loyal. The man who depends on fortune must constantly chase the next opportunity, the next windfall. He becomes reactive instead of resilient. When adversity strikes, he has no inner power to draw upon, only the memory of better times. Without persistence, luck is a candle in the wind. Persistence, however, is a decision. It is not given, it is not found, it is chosen, it is forged in silence, in solitude, in the face of rejection and resistance. The persistent man refuses to be moved by appearances. He does not measure progress by comfort. He does not wait for perfect timing or external validation. He continues because he believes, and he works because he has committed. He is not blind to setbacks. He simply refuses to be stopped by them. Those who persist develop an inner toughness that no setback can shatter. Each obstacle becomes training. Each disappointment becomes instruction. While others turn back or look for easier roads, the persistent man digs deeper. He does not blame the mountain for being high. He climbs it inch by inch. He does not curse the storm for its fury. He tightens his grip and endures. And slowly, as others fall away, he rises, not through brilliance or charm, but through sheer refusal to quit. History is filled with stories of those who achieved greatness not because they were the most talented, but because they were the most determined. The inventor who suffered countless failures before discovering the right formula, the writer whose manuscripts were rejected over and over before one was finally accepted, the entrepreneur who went bankrupt, yet started again with more resolve. These stories are not fairy tales. They are examples of what happens when persistence becomes a way of life. The path of persistence is not glamorous. It is often lonely. It demands sacrifice. It tests patience. But it also reveals strength. Each day of continued effort, especially in the absence of visible results, builds invisible muscles. These are the qualities the world eventually sees but rarely understands. To outsiders, success looks sudden. To the persistent, it was built piece by piece, day by day, with grit and grace. Persistence does not guarantee speed, but it guarantees movement. The man who refuses to stop always arrives. He may be slower than the man who starts with talent or the one who begins with luck, but he will pass them both in time, because talent fades when unpracticed and luck runs out when unearned. Only persistence keeps climbing when the path is steep and the end is out of sight. The persistent man learns to love the process. He understands that success is not a moment. It is a pattern. It is the compound interest of daily action multiplied over months and years. He sees challenges not as barriers, but as chances to prove his resolve. He embraces repetition. He welcomes discomfort. He adjusts his methods, but never his mission. And because of this, he grows stronger where others grow weary. While the talented wait to be noticed and the lucky wait for another break, the persistent man creates his own opportunity. He shows up when others sleep. He moves forward when others pause. He keeps faith when others doubt. And eventually, the world must make room for him, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it through relentless pursuit. Sharpen your mind daily. Never grow dull. The mind, like any tool, dulls with disuse and sharpens with attention. It is not a static vessel, but a dynamic force that must be maintained, challenged, and disciplined. When the mind is left unattended, it begins to accept mediocrity. It becomes slow to react, weak in thought, and vulnerable to distraction. But when the mind is sharpened daily, it becomes a weapon, precise, powerful, and resilient. The man who tends to his thoughts with care, who stretches his understanding, and who feeds his intellect is preparing himself to succeed in any arena he enters. Every day presents an opportunity to strengthen the mind or allow it to weaken. There is no neutral ground. What a man reads, what he listens to, what he allows into his consciousness either builds him or breaks him. Just as the body responds to nourishment and exercise, the mind responds to learning and discipline. It thrives on challenge, it is expanded by struggle, and it is refined by reflection. The one who sharpens his mind understands that knowledge alone is not enough. It must be organized, tested, and applied. A dull mind is easily swayed. It follows the crowd, believes the loudest voice, and fears the unknown. It avoids complexity. It resists discipline. It chooses comfort over clarity. but a sharp mind cuts through confusion. It sees patterns others miss. It questions assumptions, separates truth from noise, and moves with confidence through chaos. It is not the result of chance. It is the product of consistent mental effort, treating with intention, thinking deeply, questioning boldly, and applying lessons relentlessly. Sharpening the mind is not reserved for scholars. It is required of anyone who wants to lead, build, or grow. Whether a man works with his hands, leads a team, or carves his own path, the quality of his thinking determines the quality of his results. Decisions must be made, problems must be solved, opportunities must be recognized. These tasks demand clarity, vision, and reasoning. They do not respond to instinct alone. They yield only to thought sharpened through discipline. The great minds of history were not simply born brilliant. They cultivated their brilliance through practice. They read voraciously, they wrote tirelessly, they questioned fearlessly. They treated their minds as sacred instruments, tools to shape the world. They did not waste time in idle distraction. They did not surrender their focus to trivial pursuits. They understood that the mind could either elevate a man or enslave him, depending on how it was used. Sharpening the mind requires discomfort. It means wrestling with hard ideas, confronting one's ignorance, and embracing the tension of not knowing. It demands humility, the willingness to admit error, to revise belief, to seek better answers. But in that discomfort lies strength. Each time a man pushes past what he knows, he expands what he is capable of. He builds mental endurance, just as a runner builds physical stamina. And over time, his mind becomes a fortress, resistant to distraction, anchored in purpose, and prepared for any storm. In a world saturated with noise, the sharp mind is a rare advantage. Most people consume information passively. They scroll endlessly, absorb mindlessly, and react emotionally. But the man who sharpens his mind filters what he consumes. He seeks depth over volume. He values substance over stimulation. He reads to understand, listens to learn, and speaks with intention. His thinking is not scattered but structured. His focus is not borrowed but owned. Repetition sharpens the body. Reflection sharpens the mind. A man must not only act, but also think about his actions. He must not only learn, but test what he learns. He must not only move forward, but look inward. This habit of reflection, the daily review of thoughts, motives, choices, and outcomes, grinds away the dullness of assumption and polishes the blade of awareness. It is in these quiet moments of thought that insight is born, and with it power. The sharp mind does not grow old. It grows deeper. With each day of practice, it becomes more agile, more focused, more discerning. It resists decay because it is constantly being renewed. It is not afraid of change because it is trained to adapt. It is not shaken by challenge because it has been forged in challenge. The man who sharpens his mind daily may face the same problems as others, but he brings greater force to every solution. He does not react, he responds. He does not guess, he assesses. He does not hope, he knows. Winning is not an event, it is a habit. Too many see victory as a moment, a flash of glory that arrives at the end of a long journey. They imagine it as a celebration, a finish line, a public recognition. But winning in its truest form is not defined by a single event. It is not something that happens once and fades. It is a lifestyle, a mindset, a habit ingrained into the very rhythm of a person's daily choices. The man who wins consistently does so not because he is lucky or extraordinary, but because he has cultivated a pattern of behavior that produces results over and over again. Winning is formed in silence, long before applause is heard. It is built in early mornings, in focused evenings, in quiet hours of preparation that no one sees. The winner does not wait for competition to prepare. He does not rely on urgency to spark his effort. He trains when no one is watching. He sharpens his skills regardless of the scoreboard. He commits not to an outcome, but to a standard, and that standard is high, not because others demand it, but because he demands it of himself. Habits shape identity. What a man does repeatedly, he becomes. If he cuts corners, he becomes careless. If he hesitates, he becomes doubtful. If he shows up late, he becomes unreliable. But if he trains with intensity, speaks with clarity, works with discipline, he becomes someone who is difficult to beat. Winning is not about isolated effort. It is about integrated living. It touches every part of a man's day: how he thinks, how he moves, how he speaks, how he responds to pressure. Winning is not something he turns on and off. It is something he carries in everything he does. The habit of winning is not born from comfort. It is forged in discomfort, in doing things others avoid, in choosing the difficult path repeatedly until it becomes natural. The man who wins is not fearless. He is simply trained. He does not wait for fear to vanish. He moves in spite of it. He has taught himself that effort, not emotion, determines direction, and because of this he moves when others stall. He acts when others freeze. He builds while others drift. There is a rhythm to winning. It begins with clarity of vision, knowing what one wants and why it matters. From there, it demands consistent action, guided by principles and anchored in discipline. It requires feedback, reflection, and refinement. The winner is always studying not just his craft, but himself. He wants to know what works, what doesn't, and what must be improved. He is not fragile. He does not fear criticism. He invites it, because he understands that correction sharpens performance. He welcomes pressure, because pressure reveals preparation. Those who treat winning as a one-time goal often sabotage themselves after success. They reach a milestone, then lose their edge. They celebrate too long, relax too soon, and begin to decline without realizing it. But the one who treats winning as a habit knows that yesterday's success means nothing if today's standards drop. He does not rest on achievements. He raises his expectations. He views each win not as a conclusion, but as proof that his process works, and therefore must be continued with greater focus. Winners are not defined by a lack of failure. They fail often, but what separates them is how they respond. They do not crumble. They do not quit. They adjust, learn, and return. Each loss sharpens them rather than weakening them. They do not take failure personally. They treat it as a teacher, and because of this, they continue moving forward while others lose confidence. Their habit is not perfection. Their habit is resilience. The strongest habits are built by repetition. What begins as discipline becomes instinct. The winner does not have to convince himself to work. He does not battle procrastination every morning. He has already decided who he is. He has trained his body, mind, and will to align with that identity. This alignment creates momentum. It eliminates wasted motion. It removes hesitation, and it allows him to operate with speed, strength, and certainty. To win continually, one must focus not on the prize, but on the process. Success follows systems. The man who refines his systems, his routines, his mindset, his strategies, positions himself to win again and again. He knows that talent may give him a head start, but habit brings him across the line. He builds his days with intention, guards his time with vigilance, and honors his commitments with precision. He is not casual. He is committed, not occasionally, but daily, not when inspired, but always. Winning becomes natural, not because it is easy, but because it has become who he is. Every structure that stands tall is supported by a foundation, and in the realm of human achievement, that foundation is discipline. Without discipline, dreams remain fantasies, ideas stay dormant, and ambition becomes a fleeting emotion. Discipline is the internal law that governs behavior when no one is watching. It is the invisible hand that guides a man to rise early, to push forward in adversity, to act with precision when others grow careless. It is the habit of doing what must be done when it must be done, whether one feels like it or not. Many people desire success. They talk of goals, of change, of breakthrough moments, but desire without discipline is wind without direction. It may stir the leaves, it may make a little noise, but it never builds anything. Discipline, on the other hand, channels energy toward action. It turns dreams into plans and plans into results. The man who possesses discipline does not wait for perfect conditions. He creates the conditions through his actions. He does not seek motivation, he relies on will. Discipline begins with a decision but is maintained by repetition. It is not developed in a single day. It is forged by choosing effort over comfort, consistency over chaos, focus over distraction. Every time a man honors a commitment to himself, no matter how small, he strengthens the muscle of discipline. It is not about grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices. It is about the daily choice to govern one's actions with principle instead of emotion. The undisciplined man is a slave to impulse. He starts strong, but crumbles when the feeling fades. He makes excuses, postpones action, and blames circumstances. He waits to feel ready, and in doing so, he waits forever. The disciplined man, however, moves regardless of feeling. He acts from a place of duty, not desire. He understands that emotion is fleeting, but action is enduring. He does not let mood dictate performance. True discipline is not loud, it is not glamorous, it is quiet, often unseen. It is the early morning routine, the late night revision, the decision to say no to temptation. It is the repeated choice to stay aligned with one's values and goals. It is in the moment when quitting would be easier, but continuation is chosen. And with each of these moments, character is built, not just the character that impresses others, but the character that commands respect from oneself. Success that is not built on discipline is short-lived. It may come suddenly, through luck or momentum, but it fades just as fast. Only discipline ensures durability. It maintains progress when excitement fades. It keeps standards high when no one is watching. It preserves momentum through storms, doubts, and setbacks. The man who relies on talent may succeed for a moment, but the man who leans on discipline succeeds for a lifetime. Discipline creates freedom. Though it may seem restrictive, it liberates the individual from chaos and regret. A man who disciplines his time does not waste it. A man who disciplines his mind is not enslaved by distraction. A man who disciplines his actions walks a straight path even when the road ahead is unclear. Through discipline, he gains mastery over himself, over his craft, over his destiny. Many fail not for lack of opportunity, but for lack of structure. They have the tools but not the training. They have potential but lack process. Discipline is the bridge between potential and performance. It is what turns maybe into must. It takes ordinary habits and produces extraordinary outcomes. Discipline demands self-control. It asks a man to delay gratification, to say no when it is easier to say yes, to sacrifice comfort for growth. It is a daily war between what is easy and what is right. But each victory strengthens resolve. Each win makes the next one easier. Over time, the disciplined man becomes formidable, not because he is perfect, but because he is consistent, focused, and relentless. The disciplined individual does not need to be reminded of his goals. They are etched into his mind, reinforced by his routine, and expressed in his choices. He does not need applause, for his reward is progress. He does not need to be pushed, for he has learned to pull himself forward, and with each disciplined action he proves to the world and to himself that greatness is not granted but earned.